welcome everyone to part two of our Building the Board offensive line breakdowns. My name's Jacob Infante alongside Quentin Crisco, and we got a lot of offensive linemen to dig into. If you haven't already seen part one, you can feel free to check that out already on the Second City Gridiron YouTube channel or wherever you get your podcasts. But we've got a lot more guys to get into. I mean, I think this is a really good offensive line class. So there are a lot of guys, especially looking at the centers. I mean, we have a handful of really good centers, I think, that we're going to talk about today that I think Bears fans especially are going to be interested in.
Dude, this is the deepest center class I can remember probably ever seeing. And I don't think it's just because I'm this close to it this year. Like in past years, I remember thinking like, there's got to be good center somewhere. Like this year, it feels like every center I watch looks like that, if everything goes right for them, they could be pretty darn good,
Exactly. Yeah. And I mean, I could see like maybe 7-8 guys in this class that could realistically, if all goes well, develop into solid starters, if not more.
Yeah.
So I'm ready to just get into it. I'm excited. We got a lot of good guys to talk about today. So the first guy I want to talk about, Joe Tippmann, the center from Wisconsin. And he's someone that, especially from a Bears perspective, has really caught my eye, and he's really been a very popular talking point among the Bears Twitter, Bears YouTube section that's really interested in the draft. Lengthy guy. For a center, he's taller. He's like 6'6", and he's got these long arms that are definitely impressive for his position. But you're looking at someone who's also pretty athletically gifted. Not only does he's got solid grip strength at the point of attack, and I think that overall his raw power is intriguing, even if he doesn't always fully unlock that because of I think his demeanor is just okay. He's not super nasty, and he's a little bit high in his pads, as you might expect for a taller lineman, but he moves well. I like his lateral quickness. I think he accelerates well, climbing to the second level. I think a short area burst is especially interesting. So he's someone, I know I've tweeted this. I know other people have tweeted this. Ethan Pauchich is the name that comes to mind, the center from the Browns who just signed a contract extension there in Cleveland. I see a lot of similarities with him in Tippmann from a size perspective and athleticism perspective. He's someone I'm considering on day 2, probably late round 2, early round 3, which is like perfect for the Bears in that range where it's like 3 picks within like 10, 15 selections, something crazy like that. So I'm a big fan of Tippmann. So Q, I'm curious what your thoughts are on him.
Yeah, he's my top center in the class. I mean, I think his athletic traits, his upside he is the all-pro upside guy in this class, I think. He's not as polished as like JMS or even Whippler, I don't think. Yeah. But you see his flashes on tape of that athleticism playing out. Him, center poles out leading in front of the running back. And he's got some special athletic ability. And you don't see many 300-pounders, especially from the center position, being able to move like he does, and especially not at 6'6". Usually when a guy is 6'6", he's kind of lumbering, right? It's like it just takes him a long time to move in general, whether it's an arm or a leg. But I mean, he's got that really impressive movement ability that I have a hard time saying that if he's on the board in the second round, you pass on him. I'm not sure he'll get to the second round. But if he does, I'd love for him to be a Chicago Bear. And his mullet's going to play in this city. It's like the mullet is automatically plus 10 strength in Madden. So,
no, people would fall in love with the mullet, honestly. Like with that alone, he's tailor-made for a Chicago market. I think Bears fans would love him.
Yeah. I mean, he's got a lot or not a lot, but there's development that still needs to take place. His hands are not really the cleanest, tends to get his weight way too far out in front at times. And the grip and drive in run block, his ability to sustain the block and drive, I thought could be better, which some of that comes down to the leverage. Like you said, when you're 6'6", it's harder to win the point of attack like that because you're just going to be higher. But ultimately, I mean, I'm a big fan of this guy.
No, 100%. And I think you're looking at a dude who, like you said, he might have the best upside at center in this class. And you mentioned this guy earlier, Luke Whippler out of Ohio State. And he's another guy that I'm high on in this class. You're comparing him to Tippmann, and I think Whippler's the better player right now. I think he's, more technically sound, and his weight distribution's better. I think, he does a good job of, bending at the knees, getting his weight underneath him. Footwork as a run blocker is very encouraging, even if he's not like the most explosive or physically gifted center in this class. I think he's got some solid lateral mobility, and he's coordinated, which I think is pretty important. I don't think he's got a super high ceiling just because, the arms are a little short. From a physical perspective, his size isn't amazing. He's strong, but he's not insanely strong. He's quick, but he's not insanely quick. And he doesn't have great length. So I think he's someone he'll be a solid starter in the next level. Whether you have Whippler or Tippmann higher, I guess that depends on how much you value immediate playing ability, because I think Whippler is going to be better right away. But I do think that Tippmann's the better long-term play. So Whippler's another guy I've got in that late round 2, early round 3 range. If I'm Chicago, I think Tippmann's a better fit for this system. But Whippler, there's some Ohio State overlap there with Justin Fields. They didn't actually start together, but they were on the same team. So if you care about that at all, that's something. But yeah, Whippler, I think, is a bit more polished in terms of, hand usage, pad level, weight distribution, all that stuff. But, I just think he'll be a solid starter. Maybe not too much more than that, but I don't think the floor is necessarily all that low either.
Yeah, I mean, Whippler was, I think, the first center I watched in this class, and I was really impressed by the technical standpoint of his play, and I hadn't really, seen anyone else to gauge it against yet. So at first I got really high on him. And then, I went back and watched him later and noticed that there were a lot of combo blocks involved, a lot of help. Like when he was left alone against nose tackles, it felt like he was going to end up in the pocket. So that's really my worry with him. That anchor, that size, that ability to keep the defender out of his chest as a pass blocker. It's kind of surprising. He's a really thick-looking dude. I was kind of surprised that his anchor wasn't all that it looked like it should be, which, makes you wonder, is there some technical stuff there that he could clean up and really it all starts to click a little more? And he's another guy who I was really impressed by his movement traits. I thought he was at his best as a run blocker when he was getting out in space, using his flexibility, using really strong understanding of angles and ways to cut guys off and hitting the spots that he's supposed to hit to block up on the second level. I was really impressed with that. But ultimately, my brain just keeps going back to like Josh Myers or like some of the other undersized Ohio State centers we've seen come out they're fine. Yeah. But they're not like dudes, they're not guys who you're like, that is a player I want early in the draft. They've ended up being guys like, yeah, they can start on your team, which there's nothing wrong with, but that's where my head just keeps going with Whippler. I just see that same kind of mold.
No, I mean, I think that's totally fair. And like over the course of, especially the last month or so, I've started getting higher on Tippmann than what I've been on Whippler. I finally, actually after I've released my draft guide and with like my final rankings or whatever, I put Tippmann ahead of Whippler, and you'd be interested. This is a guy we've already talked about, but Chandler Zavala was another dude that I went back and looked at, and I realized, okay, I was way lower on him than I had any right to be. So he's a guy.
His tape's kind of weird. His tape's kind of weird.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, I think Zavala, he's not. I still don't have like a day 2 grade on him, but I went from like a later day 3 to an early day 3. Like round 4, I think would be really good value for him.
I think that's about where I've got him too.
Yeah. No, and I think that's totally fair. He's the guy we talked about at length in our last episode. There's a center that a lot of Bears fans have been talking about recently. That's Juice Scruggs out of Penn State. So it's a guy who I think it was Pro Football Network. It was Tony Pauline, I think, was the one who reported it, where he said like he'd be surprised if Scruggs fell past the Bears' 4th round pick that they have. And Juice is a guy that I've I actually had the pleasure of being able to interview fairly recently. It was before the Senior Bowl, around that time, but still, there's a lot of there's been a lot of hype about him recently. Very in an interesting story. So in 2019, he had a broken back that he suffered in a car accident, which saw him miss the entirety of the season. 2020, he came back, won the Tim Shaw Thrive Award, which is given to a Penn State football player who's overcome adversities and has been an inspiration to his teammates. And 2022, he got named team captain. So, I think that speaks a lot about from a character perspective. It seems like he checks a lot of boxes there. I think that Juice has a pretty good understanding of how to use his hands. From what I've seen from the placement and the timing that he has behind his strikes, good hand activity. If he doesn't land his strike, accordingly on the first go around, he'll keep fighting at the point of attack to try and get that leverage. Solid grip strength. I don't think he generates a ton of drive in his lower half as a run blocker, but I think that the upper body's shown some flashes. Pad levels above average. I just don't know exactly how high of a ceiling he has, just because the strength, again, decent, not necessarily amazing, doesn't have a super nasty demeanor, and he's a polished blocker, but his lateral mobility isn't all that great, at least from what I've seen. So he's someone I'm a little bit lower on than Tippmann or Whippler, but I could see I don't know about early round 4, like the reports have speculated. I think that's a little high for him, but late round 4, early round 5, I think that's pretty reasonable. So, Q, I'm curious where you have Scruggs and what your thoughts are on him.
Yeah. So, I mean, what I noticed about Scruggs was first thing, with every prospect I look at is, where have they played? And he has played right guard, a little bit of left guard, and center. And by a little bit, I mean a little bit of left guard, not enough to really say this guy can go play left guard for you. But so I still like that positional versatility, the ability to play both sides potentially and at least be able to play guard and center. Because I have a 5th round grade on Scruggs, so I'm looking at him as a backup more than anything, or like a swing guy. And in a swing guy, that's what I want. I want a guy who can plug in at center, plug in at either guard spot when I need them to, and just be solid enough to get by. And that's what I see with him. He's a smart player, high football IQ. He was making the calls for Penn State, from what I could tell, at least. Adjusting for blitzes, stunts. You could tell he was processing them quickly and well too. The way that his head was reacting. My issue was his feet weren't reacting. They're just kind of stuck in the mud. So that was really my worry with him, that that reactive quickness just wasn't quite there. He's a solid anchor. I don't think there's anyone who's going to bowl over him. He's plenty strong. Like you mentioned, his play demeanor. The guy, he's not a tone setter out there, but he's hard to run through. So he's a guy who I think definitely has value on an NFL roster. I'm just not sure he's a guy that I'm counting on to start or really play in the first few years of his career.
No, I think that's valid for sure. He's someone, like, I don't have an immediate starting grade on him, but he's someone I think down the line he could develop into a solid starter. But at that point, if you're taking Scruggs in round 4 compared to Tippmann or Whippler in round 2, I'd probably just go with the round 2 guys.
Yeah.
I think that's about fair.
I think I'd like to think of him as like a fallback option if you don't get Whippler or Tippmann or JMS. Like there's a little bit in between the two, I think, but like you're not going to go chase those guys, but you can probably know you can get Scruggs in the late 4th round if you want him. It's kind of the way that I'm thinking of it.
Yeah, no, I think that's valid. And I'll admit, if that was the early round 4 pick, I'd be kind of meh on it. I know they've got the other 4th round pick from the Robert Quinn trade from Philadelphia, which is like near the end of round 4. I'd be okay with that. I'd support that. I'd totally get it. But yeah, I agree. He's more of a fallback option for the Bears at least. And there's a guy, another center, or the last of our centers, which the fact that we've been talking about this many centers in this episode alone, and all the other guys we talked about in the first one, I think that says a lot about the depth of this class at that position. But Ricky Stromberg out of Arkansas, he's someone who he's been on my radar as an NFL draft prospect since 2021. I think I want to say that's when I first started watching his tape, and then 2022 is like leading up to the 2021 season, I should say. But either way, I mean, he's someone who's has plenty of starting experience at the SEC level against some of the top guys in the nation. He's a center. I think he's going to play center at the next level, but he's got some starting experience at both guard spots, which, like you mentioned with Scruggs, it's nice to have that a little bit of additional versatility with him. I think he's a powerful blocker. I think he's a dude who just, he's got a bit of an edge to him. I think he, lands his strikes pretty well. He's got solid timing and placement with good overall power at the line of scrimmage. And I think he's got a strong enough anchor that he can neutralize, speed to power conversions along the interior. And I think you're looking at someone who can lock out defenders from his frame, even if he's not like the biggest guy out there. Like, he's got good size, don't get me wrong, but I think he's got some solid power to his game. The athleticism, at least on tape, is where I'm a bit concerned with him. I think that he's just, pretty limited from a mobility perspective, from an acceleration perspective. And I know he jumped out of the gym at the combine, but his the runs that he had in terms of his 40-yard dash and his 10-yard split especially, those were a little bit below average. And I think the agility, when you watch on tape, it's not all that great either. So he's someone, day 3, probably like round 5, round 6. I think the tape with him is pretty good. I think he's powerful. I think he's, fairly technically sound, even if he's not like insanely athletically gifted or anything. But I think he's got some good versatility. I think he's got good experience. He's, a smart player. I think he'll stick around the league for a while. I don't know if he's going to be a starter for a long time in the league, but I think that he'll be on a roster for a while, which, that alone, I think has some sort of value.
Yeah. I mean, so first of all, I guess I should say one of the reasons I included him or wanted to include him on this today is because he has a top 30 visit with the Bears.
Yeah.
And I have this tinfoil hat theory that Ryan Poles and Matt Eberflus really like guys who are Bears fans, which sounds like it sounds like stupid, like why, like they don't care about that, but like I think they kind of do. Like, you look at some of the guys that they've brought in and drafted over the last year and change, and there's a lot of Chicago Bears fans they brought into the building, which, especially from a drafting standpoint, I can kind of understand. Like, you hear guys like Alex Brown talk about the loyalty that they had to the Bears because they were the team that drafted him. And I can only imagine that doubles when it's the team that you grew up rooting for and it's the Chicago Bears. Like, not that the Bears are some prestigious franchise recently, but historically they are, and there is a rabid fan base around it, and not trying to pull from that, I think, is kind of foolish, not try to pull from that loyalty just a little bit. I'm not saying it's like a huge factor, but I do think it is a little one. I think Stromberg might end up being their top fallback option after the second round centers. He is a polarizing prospect. I have seen grades on him from 2nd round to 6th round. Like, it is everywhere in between.
Yeah.
I have a 4th round grade on him. I thought he was a fine athlete. I didn't think there was anything special there, but I thought he was like athletic enough that he should be okay. And another guy who made the line calls at Arkansas, and maybe it's not that maybe he is a little bit below average athletically, but I just thought he was very instinctive. He really reminds me of another prospect that we talked about in the first show, Nick Broker.
Yeah.
There was nothing I could really knock him for. He was just always doing his job. And guys who can play a little bit of guard or center and are always doing their job sound like great interior offensive linemen to me.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think that especially when you have a guy with center experience, you could play him at guard. I think that this is just my opinion because I never played offensive line. But I feel like once you have that center experience, it's a bit easier to kick out to guard than it is for a guard to kick out to center.
Yeah, I think as long as you have sufficient size and length to do it, I think there's some pre-qualifiers there. Like Jarrett Patterson was just not big enough, I think that really made him struggle at guard. But like a guy like Stromberg, 33.25-inch arms, like that's plenty of length to go play guard. 306, 6'3". I think he can, and he's thickly built too. I don't think he's as skinny as a guy like Patterson was.
Yeah, no, he's got some good build to him, like that squatty kind of frame.
Yeah.
Which is, encouraging for him at the next level. So I think that's about fair. For reference, I mentioned 5th, 6th round for him. That's where I think he goes. I have a 5th round grade on him. So you are a little bit higher on him than I am, but I definitely see why you have him there. I think that he's just a rock solid player, man. I think that's such a big part of it. And I think he'll be a good player at the next level. It's just a matter of how much upside, how much potential for growth really is there to work with.
Yeah. I think on the top end, he is a good starter, a starter to a good starter, but that's like if everything goes right for him,
Yeah, no, 100%. And the next guy that we've got on our list here is, so this is an interesting thing. So this is a prospect who you look at top 4 offensive lineman comparisons from an athletic profile perspective for this guy.
Is on here.
It's Joel Bitonio, who's had a very successful career with the Browns. Ollie Marpet, who had a very successful career with Tampa before he retired. Connor McGovern, who's stayed in the league for quite some time. And Rashawn Slater, who's a Pro Bowler, a bit of an outlier at tackle, but still very, tremendous career so far. So those 4 guys, those are the top 4 comparisons for him, purely athleticism perspective. That's John Gaines II out of UCLA. And I'll let you start on him because, simply put, this is a guy who just killed it at the combine.
I have no idea where anyone else has him going. I threw on his tape some Wednesday night when I was like, I need to watch some draft prospects, but I'm tired, but I need to. I was like, this guy works. And I instantly woke up as I started watching. So I was like, oh, does anyone know about this guy? He is just... He is fast. He is explosive. He is agile, and he's 300 pounds. Like, this guy can move.
Yeah.
He's not polished, but he can move. Like that UCLA offense was utterly awesome on the ground.
Yeah.
And he was a big reason why. The amount of home run blocks I saw him hit in the 2 games I watched, whether they actually turned into home run plays or not, it was just like he was consistently hitting 2nd-level blocks on far reaches. It was just like, no wonder they're doing so well running the football.
Yeah.
I'm really excited about the potential that John Gaines brings to any football team he goes to. Like I said, there's a lot of work. His hands are a work in progress. He's slow to throw them a lot of the times. It's not because his hands are physically slow. It's processing, I think. It's muscle memory. It's just figuring it all out. And I don't even know that much about his football background either. But he strikes me as a guy who probably hasn't played football all that long because it just doesn't seem as natural to him. But when he's got it all working together, it's impressive. It is very impressive. And he's not your prototypical like brawler guard. Like he's not gonna go beat everybody up and put their face in the dirt and all that. But that's not really what the Bears do either in their running game. Like obviously you always want to do that, but like I think they take athleticism higher than the brawler type of guard.
Yeah.
And he is an athlete to boot.
No, absolutely. I mean, I'll admit, like, I thought he was a good athlete on tape, but even I was a little bit surprised exactly just how much he dominated the combine. I mean, you're looking at, over 90th percentile in everything, really.
The shuttle is faster than some wide receivers. Like
exactly. Like 20-yard shuttle, 3-cone drill, broad jump, vert, 40-yard dash, all above 90th percentile. 10-yard split was 88th. I mean, it's just absurd stuff. And he finished, like, in total as an athletic profile, his RAS was 9.95, which that just means you're a 99th percentile athlete at your position, which is just insane. I agree. I think from a technical perspective, just overall awareness and, just how he uses his body, I think he's a bit of a work in progress. And he's got all these athletic tools, but sometimes, you get him on the move. I think his balance isn't all that great, which can kind of hurt things for him. But
yeah, he really lunges on pole blocks. I noticed that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think that when he gets his hands properly timed and placed, I think, there's some really intriguing flashes. But again, like you mentioned, there's some lunges. There's the weight distribution's got some issues. But, you're looking at a 3-year starter who's played, guard, tackle, center. He's really just a quality prospect. He's someone that I'd take like early day 3. I think he might go like the 4th round. I've got a 5th round grade on him off of tape just because I think he's more of a developmental guy. But I think when you test that well and you've got that good of tools, I think teams are going to take notice. And I wouldn't be shocked if he goes a little bit higher than where I've got him graded.
Yeah, I've got a late 4th round grade on him, which is actually probably more like a 5th.
Yeah.
Just because I think I have too many guys like in that rate. Like my grades he's 98th on my big board right now, and I still have 50 guys to watch, 60 guys to watch, something like that. So he's probably going to be somewhere around like 110 to 120, I would think.
Yeah, no, I think that's totally valid, honestly. Like I've got him, I know he's in my top 200. I don't know exactly where he is, but I think it's about fine for him, I feel like.
Yeah, I mean, I just think that athletic upside is not like you see some of the stats out there about like you bet on athletes.
Yeah.
But once you're like past the like early 4th round, probably I'm all for just betting on athletes, and especially on the offensive line, 4th, 5th, 6th round picks of just gambling on athletic upside. I'm all for it.
No, I mean, I think that's totally valid. Honestly, you're just looking at who can we develop to potentially outdo this draft positioning we have? Because, I mean, sure, you can get a 6th, 7th rounder or something, and he'll be like a decent special teamer. But why not take a shot on someone who's, doesn't really know exactly what they're doing yet, but has so much room to grow, has so much in the way of athleticism, length, play strength, stuff like that. And I think Gaines is definitely one of those toolsy prospects. So another guy that we want to dig into, another guard prospect, Spencer Anderson out of Maryland. And, he's another guy. We keep talking about this versatility. He's got starting experience, right guard, right tackle, center, left tackle. I mean, I'm sure he can play left guard too, but he's, a 3-year starter at the collegiate level. I think he uses his hands pretty well. He's got a nice thick build. He's just a strongly built guy, listed at 6'5", 320. I don't think he was at the combine. So
he was a 6'4", 303 at the combine.
Wait,
no, that's Gaines. I'm sorry. That's John Gaines. I still have that pulled up.
No, I gotcha. Because I was gonna say, like, I thought he'd be a little bit heavier than that, but no. I think he uses his upper body well. I think he's got some nice waist bend, even if his knees and ankle flexion I don't think is all that great. Now good raw power, and I think the versatility shows up. He seems to have some solid length to him. I don't have the numbers pulled up in front of me right now, but I think the power in the upper body is certainly intriguing. And once he gets his weight underneath him, when he has that moment, the ability to sink, I think he's got some good anchor strength and the ability to unlock that as well. Don't know if he's a perfect scheme fit for the Bears, just purely because I think that at least watching him on tape, like he could end up, having tested very well, and I'm not so sure about that. And he could just totally blow my expectations out of the water because there were some dudes who did that at the combine this year or just in general. But I think that, body control, ability to block on the move is just okay. The direction changing ability and pass protection is just okay. He's someone I've got a little bit lower than the other guys, like around 6, round 7. Don't think he's like a high priority type of day 3 prospect, but I think that he's someone who should get drafted. And I think that he'll, serve as a solid backup and someone who can really realistically play all 5 positions along the offensive line.
Yeah. So my opinion of him is, shocker, higher.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm higher on everybody, but really it's anyone who questions why I would be higher on this guy. I will say to them, go watch his Ohio State game from this last year. Like that was, because I watched 2 games. I watched Ohio State in 2022 and against Michigan in 2021. The Ohio State against 2022 game is probably one of the best run blocking games I've ever seen from a guard.
Yeah.
As far as like early, I think it was the first quarter, they ran a play. He was playing right guard where he took like 3 steps like he was pulling left, pulled back around right in front of a screen, and hit like 2 downfield blocks. It was just his movement abilities that I saw in that game were unreal. Now, the next game I watched, he could not hold up against Mozzie Smith. Mozzie Smith was just eating his lunch.
Yeah.
So, like, it was very up and down, but it was just that athletic upside I saw in the Ohio State game is something I'm really interested in. Like I just was saying about John Gaines. And he hasn't tested, right? He wasn't at the combine. I haven't seen his pro day numbers yet. Like, I might be wrong on it, but on tape, in that Ohio State game, I saw a guy who can move about as well as John Gaines. So I'm interested to see where his testing numbers come in. If they come in where I think they are, I'm suddenly much more interested. I've got like a 5th round grade on him right now, but I mean, that can go right up to about where John Gaines is because I think they are very, very similar players.
No, that's interesting because I didn't watch the Maryland Ohio State game, so that's something I feel like I'm going to have to go back and look at again. I remember my first exposure of him was against Purdue, and I wasn't necessarily wowed with that. Yeah. And I'm trying to remember what other games I watched of him. I think it was like one more game maybe that I watched. Like I haven't watched a ton of him. So
I mean, my first note that I have written down here from that Ohio, second I put on the Ohio State game, it was just wow mover on complex screen. Like it was just like it was like some Kyle Shanahan stuff. You just don't see linemen doing this. Yeah, and it just like that whole game, it was just him getting out in space and opening up big runs. No, but absolutely. Like I said, the Michigan game was not that, so maybe it was just that game plan that allowed him to shine, or maybe I just was hallucinating. Who knows? But
yeah, so that's definitely something I feel like I'll have to go back and look at. I mean, if whatever, because when you go, you said like 2 games you watched, so
yeah,
like there's some instances where with some of these guys, like I've only watched 2 games of him too. So yep. there are certainly prospects I've watched a lot more of. And there are prospects where like I've only watched one game of them just simply to get some sort of exposure to them. But I think that's interesting. It just goes to show like maybe you're just watching some, a different game, and from game to game, there's kind of like that variation. So that'll be interesting to keep tabs on going forward.
I think that's so common on the offensive line.
Yeah.
I've seen through this whole process, I've seen games where a guy was graded at 85 by PFF, and I thought it was his worst game of the season, and then like vice versa,
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I know I mentioned players who, I watch on tape and their athletic testing kind of, surprises me. And that was Anthony Bradford, guard out of LSU. He's someone who, blew my expectations out of the water. I mean, he was listed at 6'5", 345 in college, measured 6'4", 332 at the combine. So, did lose a bit of weight. He's still a heftier guy though. Solid arm length along the interior. He's got starting experience at left tackle. He's played right tackle. He started at both guard spots. Again, that versatility I think is big. Strong anchor dude. And it's very interesting because I thought he's just, he's a gap type guard. He's someone who can clear running lanes. I think he's someone who can just dominate at the point of attack. But when you ask him to move a lot, you don't see too great agility or body control. And then he goes and puts together one of the top performances of any offensive lineman at the combine. Like you're looking at a 332-pound guy who ran like a 508 40-yard dash with the 174 10-yard split. I mean, that surprised me. And I remember watching that and I was like, wait, did he just run what I thought he run? And it was, that was definitely eye-opening to me. I haven't been able to go back and, watch a bit more of him. Like I've watched him against Alabama. I remember that was the first game I watched, and I wasn't super blown away by him athletically, but if he's testing super well and he's that, at that weight, he's, lost even more weight than where he was listed at. If he can be a big guy who can move a bit, that's very valuable, like especially in like a straight line perspective or like from a diagonal where you're not changing direction a whole lot. I think there's certainly value in that. So he's someone probably like definitely day 3. I think that the tape, doesn't always have the best control over his body, but like a round 5, round 6, I think it'd be pretty good value for him.
Yeah, I saw the same thing. I mean, massive wide frame, just top-notch power, bit of a finishing mentality. As I've written down, he's a freight train in running.
Yeah,
it's like
exactly.
He's just going to run you over, and there's not a lot you can do about it if you're in his way. That's the thing, though. If you get out of his way and he wants to block you, there's not a ton I thought he could do about it. Like it really struggled to square up his hips on guys when they moved really a little bit left, a little bit right. It was easy to kind of shift out of his range and go make a play on the football. And yeah, I just watched him last week. And my note here on weaknesses is overall speed, explosiveness, and change of direction appear limited on tape. Does not match testing.
Yeah.
Like, I was shocked when I saw his RAS score. Some other things I thought, really strong grip. He's really able to freeze opponents with his punch and just the ability to absorb power. Like there were times where a blitzer was coming into him full speed and it looked like they just hit a brick wall. Like, I mean, he just has that type of strength, that type of power in his body to just absorb everything that's coming at him and just not really be affected. But I'm a little worried about his awareness against deep defensive line games. Notice him struggling against some stunts, some simulated pressures. In one of the games I watched for him, it was like the D coordinator caught on, started throwing a lot at him, and it kind of was snowballing a little bit. So that's just one thing that I thought was worth paying some attention to. And I'm right there with you. I have a 5th to 6th round grade on him, somewhere around there.
Yeah, and I'm interested in seeing what teams think about the testing, if that really changes their evaluation on him, because it's so night and day compared to like what you see from him on tape.
Yeah.
So it'll definitely be interesting. We can move to tackle here. There's a guy that we didn't talk about in the first group that honestly kind of fits. It wasn't like our top 10 tackles in order, but a lot of them were kind of top prospects. This guy kind of fits the vibe, but he didn't. I'm a little bit surprised that we didn't talk about him the first time around. That's Anton Harrison.
It was either him or sorry. Yeah,
no, go
Anton.
ahead.
It was either him or Wanya Morris, and
Yeah, I mean, Bears fans love them some Wanya Morris, so I mean, I can't blame them for that. But yeah, Anton Harrison out of Oklahoma. So I know Q, you're a Big 12 guy, so I'll let you kick off things on him if you want. But I think there's a lot to like here with Harrison for sure.
Yeah, I mean, just a prototypical frame. He's a little light, probably needs to add a little more mass, but like he will. I don't think there's any real worry about that. He's got length, 34 and an eighth inch arms, and just room to continue to grow. And he's already pretty good. Like he has some really good movement abilities in space. I really like his demeanor. He's very patient, very calm all the time out there. Plays with quick feet. And really, so one of the big things I watch for tackles is, how's their inside shoulder, right? Are they getting too wide? If they're getting too wide, do they have the ability to recover? And he always plays inside out because he knows he has the athleticism to get out when he needs to, which is just, I mean, that is a huge thing for an offensive tackle. Just know that they have that in their toolbox when they need it, because then they can just be constantly protecting inside and mirror back outside. It's just, it really, really gifted thing to be able to do. Needs to bring his pad level down, bend his knees more, costs him leverage and costs him reps, and then a lot of penalties over the last 2 years. And I didn't see a lot on tape of him going against true like speed rushers from a 9-tech, which is when I did see it, it was a bit more of a struggle because he was probably forced out of playing that inside out a bit more and just forward to him. I think he'll figure that out. Like, I think he's a high floor guy. He and most likely is going to be a pretty good tackle in the NFL. I don't know if you're looking at like a future all pro or anything, but I just think he has the tools to be a good football player.
That's valid. Honestly, I think you summed him up perfectly. I think I share a lot of the same strengths and weaknesses. From a weakness perspective, I agree. The pad level, the knee bend, I think that's an area he needs to improve. And I think he should add a little bit more bulk to his frame, particularly in his anchor. I'd like to see a little bit more, but I think you bring up a really good point about working inside out, that he knows that he's athletic. He knows he's got that burst in his kick slide. He's got the lateral agility. He's got the footwork where, he can afford to play inside a little bit. And if the edge rusher, kicks out a bit more outside than he was expecting, he can make up for that. And, he tested well at the combine, and I think you watch him on tape, he's one of the best athletes at offensive tackle in this class, really. He's someone I think you're looking at maybe around one guy. I think early round 2, that's the grade that I have on him right now. I wouldn't at all be upset if a team took him round 1 because, I definitely see the value in that. Definitely has tools to develop, I think, into a quality starter. And I think, again, I agree with you. The floor is a bit higher than I think some people give him credit for. So I'm interested in seeing where he ends up. I think there's some scheme versatility. Zone's probably the best fit for him. Maybe like a wide zone. I think he could, play really well. But I think you can draft him just about anywhere, and he'll be a solid starter at the next level.
Yeah, I got mid-second round on him. So, and like you said, if there's a run on tackles, he's still probably value in the late first. If I'm being completely honest, I have a mid-second round grade on him just because it's not as polished as I'd like. But like, there's a lot of tackles in this class. There's a lot to compete with, so it probably pushes him down my board a little. Just the fact that there's 5 guys that I like more than him. It's not a question of how good he is. It's just that I think those guys are really, really good.
No, absolutely. I mean, it's a good offensive line class, which I mean, that's good if you're a team like the Bears who needs offensive linemen, or literally just for any team, because I don't think you can have too many good offensive linemen. Like realistically,
Yeah.
that's just a position where you can just keep adding talent and you'll be better off for it, really. So there's a guy that I know you wanted to talk about like especially like as we were planning this, later on in the process, Carter Warren out of Pittsburgh, and I'm happy that you brought him up because he's someone I haven't heard a ton of hype about from outside perspective, and I think maybe that's a good thing from an evaluation perspective because you don't really come in with a set narrative of, okay, this is what other people think about him. I'm going to have that in the back of my mind when I'm doing my evaluation on him. So Carter Warren's a dude who, he's got some of the longest arms just in this class. You're looking at, 35 and 3/8 inches at offensive tackle, and more than fits the threshold that you're looking for at the position. And I think you're looking at good physical tools there. Obviously the length, but also I think he's a pretty mobile guy for his size. Like he's got good size, but it's the length that really stands out with him. I think he, changes direction pretty well, especially once he knows what he's doing and once he can accurately process what's in front of him. He's got good play speed. The pass protection, I remember watching Kenny Pickett leading up to last year's draft, and I'm like, oh, this left tackle's pretty good. He can move, and he was doing a heck of a job, protecting for Pickett. And 2022, I saw, a bit of the same. Good raw power. I think, he packs a nice punch at the point of attack, and that combination of power and quickness should be intriguing to teams. I just think that from a pad level perspective, from a processing perspective, he's a work in progress. A little late to diagnose like stunts and delayed blitzes and stuff like that. So, and also, he's a bit high in his weight distribution. He doesn't have like a set low anchor to him, but I think he's a good prospect, someone worth developing like in the 4th or 5th round, really. You take a shot on him. You're not really expecting him to contribute much as a rookie, but down the line, sure. I mean, I could see him developing into a starter. It's just a matter of, is he going to land at the right place that's going to, necessarily teach him out of some of these bad habits that he has? And is he going to be able to, really apply that and maximize that physical talent that he has?
Yeah. I mean, I think you hit a lot of the nail on the head there. It's the first thing I noticed watching this guy was how active his feet are, which I love because to me, active feet means a guy who is putting in the effort constantly. That's not natural. When you're not moving that far, it's just not natural to take small, efficient steps like that to always stay grounded. So that to me screams a guy who wants to be the best that he can be. And like you said, long arms. He has a bit of a mean streak, which I liked.
Yeah.
And I thought he was, and this is weird, I thought he was at his best when put in true pass sets.
Yeah.
Which wasn't a lot last year. I didn't watch the tape with Pickett from 21, but in 22, Pitt ran a lot of play action, a lot of screens, but I thought his most impressive reps, I kept jotting down his most impressive reps, they were true drop back pass sets. That is where he's at his best, and that's the hardest thing to find, right? Like, I think that is impressive in its own right. But there's plenty to clean up.
Yeah.
His grip strength on the second level, maybe it's more his hips, but it just hitting that second level and being able to drive someone was pretty consistent issue. I just generally wasn't very impressed with his run blocking, which I was surprised by because I really liked his anchor ability in pass pro. It was like there were times where he was anchoring down on a guy with one arm on him. It was like, okay, this guy's strong. He's going to blow someone up in the run game. And then it just kind of never came to happen. So I think there's a lot to clean up with that, with getting his hips on the target, with, slowing down a little bit in the run game to make sure he's hit it, like just mentally slowing down a little bit in the run game. I just felt like he was rushing a lot of the times. And I don't think he's the most fluid athlete. I think he might always need a little guard help on his inside shoulder, but that's something you can probably live with.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And I think for like a day 3 guy, or maybe even like late day 2, that's fair. It's totally valid to have, maybe needs a little help around him, but can still hold his own. Like, I think that's solid value there. There's an offensive tackle. I get this guy confused with Carter Warren a lot for like, I don't know why. I mean, they're both C first names. But other than that, I don't know why else I get him confused. But Connor Galvin out of Baylor, the tackle, is, from a proportional perspective, one of the weirdest prospects in this class, because he's just a hair under 6'7", so he measured 6'6" and 3/4, but 293 pounds, which is second percentile for an offensive tackle. 32 3/8 arm length, which is 5%, fifth percentile for an offensive tackle, and 9 inches hand size on the dot, which is first percentile. That's 1% who he's better than, has bigger hands than. And he didn't run super well at the combine. His explosiveness wasn't all that great. Bench press was very good. Vertical jump was good. I think that kind of tracks with what I saw from him on tape. I think he's got good size. The length itself isn't great, but I think he, packs a nice punch at the point of attack. I think he's got pretty good grip strength and a solid, like, sturdy anchor in pass protection. Even though he's taller and his pad level isn't all that great, he's still got good natural strength that's proportioned evenly in his frame. I think, he's got, at least from what I saw, a decent amount of experience blocking on the move, whether that's as a screen blocker or, outside zone runs, or they have him accelerating to the second level, whatever. And he's got some solid body control for his size, but I think in pass protection, the long speed isn't all that great. He'll need to add some more weight to his frame. He'll need to get some more flexibility in his lower half. And I wasn't necessarily blown away with, like, from a nastiness perspective. I think he's someone probably more of like a late day 3 type of guy, like a round 6, round 7. If you want to kick him at guard, I wouldn't blame you at all, honestly. I think, you could do either or there, really, but I think he's a backup at the next level. I don't think he's like an amazing prospect by any means, but I think that he'll stick around the league for a bit. It's just a matter of exactly how much of an impact is he going to have.
Yeah, I mean, so I got really excited when I was first watching Galvin, because I saw a guy who was just, Baylor did some creative stuff with him.
Yeah.
Like, they really like to get him out on the move, to put him in space, lead blocking screens. Like, there was just a lot of interesting stuff that they did with him, and he was nailing it. He was hitting his spots, hitting his marks, and doing what he was supposed to do. And it was something you just don't see many tackles doing, period. So I was disappointed in his testing numbers, though. Like, I thought he was going to test pretty well after seeing that it must be body control and just technique that he played with, because I was surprised how poor his testing ended up being, and his lack of length surprised me a little bit too. Yeah. I knew that his length probably wasn't great, because Will McDonald kind of ate his lunch, and Will McDonald wins with great length and speed. But I don't know. He was so unique, such a different player that he stood out to me a lot, Connor Galvin. So I'm interested in him. I know he's probably limited. I know that he's probably not going to be a starter at the next level, because, I mean, it's one of those times where you just wish the guy was like 2-3 inches shorter. I think he could be a pretty good pass protecting guard, but he's probably just a little too high cut to play on the interior. And I really like the technique that he plays with. And I mean, his pad level gets tall. He's 6'7".
Yeah.
There aren't many guys whose pad level is good at 6'7",
Yeah.
but everything felt so smooth with him. It never felt like he was in that much of trouble, which was just is interesting seeing his testing numbers. I mean, maybe I just misread it, but his testing numbers and his length are not what I thought I saw on tape.
Yeah. No, honestly, I mean, that's fair. I was expecting a little bit better from him from an athleticism perspective. I didn't see like an amazing athlete by any means, but I was still expecting like, something decent, even if it was like middle of the road. But yeah, finishing below average, it's a little underwhelming. As I say, I've got the doorbell ringing. So I'll let you start with our last guy, Asim Richards. While I go on mute here and I figure out this situation, and then I'll join you back over here for our last guy.
Yeah, so we'll go ahead and jump in on Asim Richards out of North Carolina. Left tackle, little bit of exposure to the left guard and right tackle, but mostly a left tackle. Guy who actually reminds me quite a bit of Carter Warren. Like, I thought it was similar, I thought he was a very natural pass protector and really good body control, a little bit bendy at offensive tackle, which you always like to see. And where he probably differentiated a little bit from Carter Warren was I thought he had a really strong grip and really latched well. It was almost like sometimes in pass pro, it seemed like he just latched and held, and like the guy might take him a few steps over, but the guy just couldn't get out of his grip. Which was, and not held in a bad way. Like, I mean, he was clean, but it was just a bit different of a tactic than you usually see, where it was like, if you're going to get there, you're going to drag me with you. So I really liked what I saw from him on tape in pass pro. There were moments where he had like, brain farts, and there's probably some stuff to clean up there with processing. And I didn't love his run blocking, and that's probably putting it lightly. I thought he could do a lot more as a run blocker to kind of dictate the game and what dictate the defender and their direction. And it felt like sometimes he was just more focused on just getting in the way than anything as a run blocker. And he's another guy who I haven't looked up his background yet. I wouldn't be surprised if he hasn't played football very long. It just seemed like he's still figuring the football part out, but he's really gifted for it.
Yeah. So from what I caught, the last little bit there, so I think that he's someone I have projecting inside. Like, he's got enough length to stay at tackle. But I just think that, athletically, he might be a better fit at guard. I see, I see a strong anchor. I see someone who's, got some, good grip strength that allows him to really, lock out defenders from his frame and his footwork. I've seen some flashes from, his lateral movement. Even if his change of direction isn't great, I think in his kick slide, he's got some, a nice base to him. Good, like I said, good arm length. He's a guy, 34-inch arms. So, that's more than enough to stay at tackle. So I think that'll help him out from a versatility perspective. But yeah, no, I see a lot of the mental mistakes too. So someone who's, good power, I think, a nice base to him. He's going to have some nice versatility, I think. But yeah, I think he's more of a day 3 type of guy. And
yeah.
And
I've written down here, just doesn't know how to do his job sometimes. Like, it just felt like he just didn't know. He knew what he was supposed to do, but he didn't know how to do it.
Yeah, no, I think truthfully that's fair. And I think that, it sums it up well with him. Like, he's gifted. He's a strong football player, but I just think sometimes he, looks kind of lost out there. And I know there's one more guy that I realized that you wanted to add that we forgot to touch. We didn't talk about Braden Daniels out of Utah.
Yeah.
So that's that was the last guy that we wanted to talk about. So Braden Daniels, you're looking at a dude who's He's a 4-year starter at the collegiate level. So he's got tackle experience at both spots. He's got left guard experience as well, I believe. And I see good overall mobility with him. I see someone who, at the combine, I was impressed with how he tested. I mean, he's a smaller guy. He's like 294. So you expect a guy who's a bit smaller in terms of weight to run well and to measure well from an agility and speed perspective. And he was well above average in all the agility, explosion, and speed drills, which, I thought was very impressive. There are sometimes kind of like Asim Richards. I don't necessarily know if he knows what he's doing all the time. I see, very good just coordination, moving around. He's got a good overall, he's a good body control, good short area burst, and, changes direction well in pass pro, but not super nasty, really. Doesn't have elite power in his game. I think the pad level, he tends to pop a bit upright sometimes, which, that can hurt his anchor strength even more so than, because he's not this 330-pound stone wall who can, hold up his own at the point of attack consistently. He's a bit lighter, so he'll get pushed around a bit when, teams try to run power against him, defenders with a nice bull rush or something, or a long arm. I think he might struggle with that a bit at the next level. Definitely tools to work with. I think he's versatile. I think he can thrive in a wide zone situation. More of like a, round 4, kind of maybe round 5 type of guy. I just think that it's a matter of, adding a little bit more bulk to his frame, getting a little bit more nasty, and, just being more sure of what he's doing, because he can sometimes be too late to really process what's going on in front of him. And, you turn on the tape, that can come back to bite him sometimes.
Yeah. I mean, so I think he's a guy who you're going to definitely be moving inside.
Yeah.
It's just a question of where. Because, I'm not sure that his pass protection gets all that much better being an undersized guard than an undersized tackle. And I'm not sure that it really helps him in the run game. He's still 294 pounds. And I get the feeling that, looking at his frame, that he's going to struggle to add too much more mass to that. Just because he's more of a springy athlete than he is a thick framed guy.
Yeah.
But I heard a really interesting idea the other day on a podcast where they said the scouts were talking on the podcast were saying that they think that his best chance in the NFL is to become a center, which really intrigued me. I mean, I thought there were some questions with his consistency and his processing. It just felt like he ran hot and cold a lot. And I felt like he was fighting against his instincts out there. It was like he's overthinking everything and was just ending up doing nothing too often. Which I'm not sure if that's what you want at center, but his athletic traits are that would be really cool to have at center, right? That would be a lot of fun. So that was just an interesting thought, and I can kind of get on board with that if you're going to take him in the 6th round or something and say, hey, we want you to be a center. Training starts today. I could get behind the idea of that, but I struggle with keeping him at tackle and even guard. I struggle with the idea of him, having to take on the interior guys at his size, strength profile. And I mean, he's 6'4", he's tall, but he's built like a power forward, he's not built like a brick house like you want to see. Yeah. But that athleticism in space would be cool at guard too, because he can get out and he can move, and that's where he's best. The thing that really made me struggle with him is there's some offensive linemen, one of the guys we talked about earlier, the guy out of LSU.
Bradford.
Yeah, Anthony Bradford, who their thing is absorbing contact, right? Darnell Wright's like that too. They can just take whatever you're throwing at them and just, it's gone. It doesn't impact them. And that's how I feel like Braden Daniels plays, but he doesn't have that magic ability to just take in the force and not be thrown back.
Yeah. No, I think that's an interesting way to put it. And I honestly kind of agree with it. Like there are too many times on tape that I saw where, he absorbs the contact and, if you're strong enough, then you can do that. Like you mentioned two guys like Bradford, like, and Darnell Wright, especially, he can, absorb that contact and he's strong enough in his anchor and just in general, stable enough to be able to stay upright and prevent guys from pushing the pocket against him. I don't think Daniels is there yet. So definitely a lot of room for improvement. I think the center thing's definitely interesting. I have him as a guard personally because I really like the athleticism that he could bring there. But I think if you do want to move him at center, I think there's validity there for sure. So, and yeah, that's all we got. That's our offensive line round 2. I say that's all we got, but we've been running for over an hour, so we got plenty of good hog molly content for you guys. I hope you all enjoyed, and I certainly did because I think that this is a good year for the Bears to need offensive linemen because there are a lot of really talented dudes this year.
Yeah, no, it's Holes planned it great. All this need on the offensive line right when it's coming through the draft, but seriously, I'm excited to keep talking offensive line. I love watching these guys and I love talking about them. It's an art.
Yeah, no, 100%. So yeah, no, again, thank you all for watching. Make sure to stay tuned to Second City Gridiron. We're going to have a lot more draft content through Building the Board and all of our other podcasts that we've got coming up. So yeah, stay tuned for that. And thank you for watching.